Hey guys, it's Qui-Gon Jinn, and I am back for another price action update on Bitcoin, crypto, and the stock market. I'm going to try to keep this one brief, but I did say that I would post a video as an update for the weekly candle close here on Bitcoin. So, first thing I want to point out real quick is just that this evening star pattern did end up forming completely. This current weekly candle did engulf the previous two. So this is an evening star pattern, which is a 3 candlestick pattern. It's a bearish reversal pattern. So even though it didn't really occur at the very top of the trend, it is a bearish pattern nonetheless. So that's not a great sign for bulls. First off, right there. The second bad sign is that the weekly candle body did close below the bull market support band. So it is now closed below the 20-week SMA as well as the 21-week EMA. It's closed below both of them. So that's also not a very bullish sign. This new weekly that just opened about 3 hours ago, has already dropped quite a fair amount. 10% drop just in the past couple hours after going down for several days. Actually more than a week now. I think we've been going down, or at least the better part of a week. So I don't know what to tell you guys. I mean, the thing is, this is a bearish pattern, and typically you would see a continued downtrend after this pattern forms. I have seen them get validated. I have seen them not come to fruition as far as being a reversal pattern, so I'm really not too worried about it. And one of the things that makes me feel a bit more comfortable is, if I just bring up my drawings here, is that I was mentioning that the Bitcoin price could revisit these levels at some point. I didn't think it would happen quite as soon as it did end up happening, but sure enough, here we are. I mentioned that this 382 retracement, this fib retracement level, was sitting around here, 51,500. It's also the bottom of this descending channel that we've been in since the all-time high. So I gotta say that the price has been adhering to this descending channel beautifully. This is one of the most perfect descending channels I think I've seen on Bitcoin in a long time, possibly ever. But while I've got it on the weekly, we have had a fairly significant sell-off from the local top down to the bottom of today's low. It's been over a 25% drop. So we're starting to have steeper corrections. This is the steepest. This is the highest percentage and steepest correction to the downside that we have seen this entire bull market. So it's sort of giving a few hallmarks of capitulation, and I will discuss that in a moment. But while we're over here, I wanted to point out that yes, we are in this descending channel. Yes, we have reached the bottom of it. I think it's a reasonable or logical enough place to bounce from this level, despite the fact that there are a few red flags happening, and one of those red flags being that this regression trend that I have drawn from the bear market low to our all-time high, we've now lost this center line, which, even though I did expect price to go lower, we've lost this center line, and this weekly candle, although it's brand new and fresh, is already not looking so good. But I do know that it could look much different. Even by the time I wake up tomorrow, it could look much different. For now, it's not looking great. But you are still above this 382 retracement level. You are still above the 50 weekly SMA, and you are still adhering to this bottom trend line of this descending channel. So I can't exactly tell you what caused the sell-off to be so abrupt tonight. It is a Sunday night. I had mentioned that I was going to be buying some altcoins. But if we look on the daily chart, I mean, that I had mentioned that, losing the 200 daily SMA isn't good. It's usually a bearish signal. I mean, what I was saying was that I don't think it would be the end of the world, but I mean, it is more or less a bearish signal. For continued bullish momentum, it's better to see the price stay above the 200 daily SMA. So it's looking a little bit less optimistic, and you look like the 50 daily SMA looks like it could be approaching a death cross on the daily. So if the 50 SMA crosses below the 200 SMA, that's called a death cross. For those of you who don't know or aren't familiar with moving averages, when the 50 crosses above the 200 moving average, that's called the golden cross. So you can see what happened here. When you had a golden cross, price shot up. And we're approaching the opposite now with this death cross. The last time you had a death cross, though, was back here in September 10th, or September 11th, actually, of 2023, which essentially marked the bottom. You really didn't go any lower than that after this death cross occurred, or the day that it occurred. The price never went below that price again. The low of this candle was 24,888. The price never went lower than that after the death cross occurred, and then you got this golden cross soon after. Here's another golden cross. You can see the price continued up. You did have a correction into it, and you held above the 200 and bounced from it, and continued to consolidate at higher prices up here. So going through these death crosses, yes, you can say that when this death cross occurred, it was an extremely bearish signal, because there was a lot going on during this time. We had a lot of conflict. There was a major shift in monetary policy. Inflation was getting really bad. There was a lot going on at this time. When you did have this death cross, you came back up to the 200 SMA, and it actually met resistance there almost perfectly to the dollar before rejecting, and you ended up with this big bear market. I'm not suggesting that we're going into a bear market, because I really don't believe that. But the chart will make it look very convincing at times that we are going into a bear market. But sometimes it'll trick you. Like Bitcoin is I say it all the time. Bitcoin is a master troll. It trolls everybody, and it always gets one over on everyone. Nobody knows what it's going to do next. So here's another death cross that I wanted to mention. If it puts anyone's mind at ease, this was back in June of 2021. We had this death cross here, and as you can see, on the day that the death cross occurred, the price only really went down. Well, it went down another 17%, which, I mean, that is considerable. But it really didn't go much lower after that death cross occurred. And the price had already been lower than that before the death cross occurred. But back then, back in 2021, we were all freaking out saying that, oh, the bull market's over, like this death cross on the daily, like that's a huge deal, like the bull market is probably over, and we're probably not going to go up anymore. We're probably going to go down and go back down. People were thinking it was going to go back down to 3K or 10K, whatever, probably, a lot of people were talking about these lower targets here, which it did end up inevitably hitting. But I mean, I remember back then everyone was freaking out. Everyone was thinking it was going to go back to 10K. There was people extreme enough to say 3K, but the price never returned to those levels. And you know, when everyone was at the height of everyone's fear, was around this time, this area, you did finally get the death cross, and the price bottomed out and really never returned to, well, it did return to this price, a similar price, but the price never went lower than that before bouncing. Eventually you recovered and you went for this final leg up. So if anything, like, I mean, if that puts your mind at ease at all, you know, the death cross, I think, is not the end of the world, because you did have one here in the middle of the cycle back in 2021. Everyone thought it was the end of the world. It really wasn't. It wasn't until after you got the second one, which was also driven by a lot of other factors, like I had mentioned. It really wasn't until after you got the second one where the price really started to make lower highs, lose critical levels, and it was just over at that point. So I'm not really stressing about it too much. I mean, if you kind of relate this one right here to this one over here, yes, you did have this big COVID collapse, and that contributed to this death cross occurring. But I mean, once you got back above it, you were flying and mooning until this one, and that really just ended up being a mid-cycle correction, a summer lull, and it realistically is around the same area that we were back in 2021. So, I mean, the end of July was when you did finally end up bouncing and going for the final leg up in Bitcoin. We did kind of get cut short a little bit here because everyone was expecting higher prices at that point, but you know, typically when the majority is thinking one thing, or they're so sure that it's going to hit a certain target, it typically doesn't hit that target, or it typically does the opposite of what the majority of the people are thinking. If there's a bias that is too heavy to one side, whether it be bearish or bullish, if the majority have a much too heavy bullish bias, the price is probably going to turn around and go bearish and have a correction. If the majority are bearish, you know, when they're looking for lower numbers, you know, like everyone around here was looking for lower numbers and looking for it to go down to 10K or lower, it didn't happen because the majority had already flipped their sentiment, given up, saying that it's over, like the bull market's over. But we did end up getting higher prices, you know, and the sentiment, whatever the majority of the sentiment is saying, you know, it's a lot of times good to do the opposite and be the contrarian. It ends up working out better. So anyway, let's get back to this current price action and where the price sits now. So you did lose this level, this 61,348 level. You broke and closed below it on the daily. You know, on this same day, you know, August 3rd, you dropped below it, and you also lost the 200 daily SMA. And we have failed to get the price since this candle closed below the 200 daily SMA. The price has failed to even reach the 200 daily SMA again, let alone get above it. I mean, it's failed to get above it, but it hasn't even failed to touch it yet. So obviously, for the past couple days, the sentiment has been down. I tried to give but everyone loves when the price goes up, and I was trying to sort of give a case for the price potentially bouncing here between 59.7 and 59.8, because both of these fib levels were here in confluence. One of the fib levels being from this move down to the top here, the other one being from this top down to the bottom here. Both of those 618 fib levels matched up, like, you know, nearly perfectly, and there was also this 236 level, which, you know, they're not historically the best, And you had this support line. So there was a decent amount of confluences. I did my best to try to make a case that the price could potentially bottom out there. However, it failed to bounce and make a higher high. Instead, it formed a more like a bear flag looking structure. If you take this and, you know, sort of draw it in here, this is a sort of more like a bear flag looking structure. And yeah, it didn't really show any signs of a sustained move up. I have this trend line, the one I refer to as a crudely drawn trend line, because it doesn't really have, there's points where it did break above it before dipping back below it, breaking above it again, and then dipping below it. This is showing, you know, signs of weakness. When you lost, the first level that we lost was the 63.3. The second level was the 61.348. And it just to reiterate those, I mean, this yellow line, this is extremely important because this is the highest monthly candle bodies back in 2021. Highest monthly candle body closes. We're very far below that now. Like, we have now made a lower low, even since the low of last month. So the low of last month, 53,329. We've already made a lower low with this monthly candle, and it just started a few days ago. Still has 26 days left, but you already made a lower low, 52,222. So, I mean, this type of thing looks bad. I don't really expect the candle to close looking like this, because like I said in the previous video, a lot of price action can happen within 2 weeks. A lot of price action can happen even within 1 week. But I mean, especially within 2 weeks. So a monthly candle body, there is 4 weeks worth of price action within that body, and it could end up buying right back up and still end up closing above this monthly support at 61.348. The second one is the two weekly support. So we've got the red line, the 2 weekly support, the yellow, which is the monthly support. You drop both of them. You know, so the first one being the red line still attempted to hold up the 200 SMA, but eventually closed below it, and when you tried to get back above it, you rejected with this wick here. This is on the 4-hour chart now. So you're below, I mean, now you're below the 200 daily SMA. You're below the 200, you're below both the 50 and the 200 on the daily. You're below both 50 and the 200 on the 4-hour. And you're below both the 50 and the 200 on the 1-hour. So you already, I mentioned the daily death cross potentially incoming. It's looking like you could have the same situation on the 4-hour. It's looking like you could have the same situation. Well, the same situation already happened back here. This 1-hour death cross, I was pretty sure that the price was going to continue to go down even at this point. Whereas we got this swift move down, and this is a J-hook pattern. That's a bearish continuation pattern. I mean, typically you wouldn't want to look for it at the top of a trend. It's more of a continuation pattern. So if the price was already going down, you know, you would want to see it in the sort of the middle of the trend, and the price continues downwards. But I didn't like the look of it back then, and you also did have a fair amount of bearish divergence, because you got these higher highs in price, lower highs in the RSI. I believe we talked about that in the video before, and that formed on the 1-hour. So these are things that we pointed out back then, and I'm sad that I wasn't up and recording and making content back then, because I really feel like I could have saved people a lot of money if they were able to evade this drop, which is really pretty fucking savage, honestly. That's it doesn't look nice. It looks mean. But some things I do want to highlight aside from, yeah, like, yes, you do have a lower low, but a lot of times what this ends up meaning is you sweep a low from before. You sweep a prior low and there's no long liquidity. So as far as people going long on leverage, they've all been stopped out and or liquidated. And this tends to happen like just over and over and over again. They go for these liquidity sweeps, the price reverses immediately. Then you have a new low. So that's the next level that you actually have to take out and dip below. If all of these liquidations, if all the people that longed right here and caught the bottom, if they're going to get liquidated down here, that's the level you need to take out. So it's almost like the price is relentless. Will go relentlessly to the downside until, you know, all those positions have been cleared and the market's been completely deleveraged. And that's really what this looks like. And I've kind of been looking for a big capitulation signal. And I think that I'm starting to see these capitulation signals now, because you have this massive volume bar on the 4-hour. And the last time, if you just take a note of how high this volume candle is, or this volume bar is, that's the highest volume that we've gotten on the 4-hour. It was higher than this drop back here. It was higher than this volume candle back here. So I mean, the last time that you really had volume this high was February and March, when you were breaching into new all-time highs. So we've gotten higher volume bars than we were getting back when we were at all-time high. And I mean, the 1-hour volume, I'm sure, tells a similar story. This is a pretty massive 1-hour volume candle that you got. And a lot of times when there's huge volume, you do want to see a long wick on the bottom side, which this one is relatively long, but I mean, it's not the longest in the world. But if you look, what had happened was the price came down to that trend line almost perfectly, and then it bounced 4% almost immediately within the same 1-hour candle. It bought back up, and now the price is making somewhat of an attempt to hold that line above this 1-hour close. So I think there's actually a pretty decent chance. I expected the price to make contact with this descending trend line at some point, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. I was kind of thinking that we would get a bit of a bounce up, and if we were to hold 60K, say we were to hold 60K, for example, for the reasons I mentioned, I said to keep the price targets modest, the upside price targets modest if you were looking for a bounce. And I mean, I guess honestly it wasn't modest enough. I figured we were probably, if we were going to get a bounce, we'd probably come and retest some of these levels before continuing down. And I thought it might take another couple months to another couple weeks at least to even reach these targets. But one of the reasons I thought that is just because there are, in this channel, there was this descending line, this descending trend line, and then also this regression trend, the bottom of this regression trend. And they meet up pretty good confluence, like just below 50K. But I mean, you also have your 50 weekly SMA creeping up there. So I didn't think the price was going to come down this sharp, this quick, but it is signature. Like, it's showing all the signatures for like a capitulation move and or massive liquidation event. And the daily is now down at 27. When I was doing analysis last night, I basically was saying, like, you know, I don't know if the price is going to hold here at 60K, but played out like clockwork. 4-hour BTC bearish divergence playing out, bottom of channel 51K. Yeah, so we were saying even back then, you know, when the price was above 65K, or, you know, even 69K, we were kind of expecting a move down to the bottom of the channel. So this is the and that was Lennon Gnarly, and I do believe that he posted something else that we can get an update on as well. So I just wanted to go through quick what my thought process was here. It looked like we were trying to hold above that 60K area with the 618 fib confluence, trying to be a little bit optimistic about it, but I had also noticed that we had lost that monthly support level. So that was a key level for me to, like, if we were going to take it back, like if we were going to flip bullish again, I'd say that would be a key level for us to take that back, that 61,350 area. So obviously we didn't do that, but what I was saying here was, you know, we closed above 60K, came down to sweep that, you know, 59.8, and saying that the 1 hour was looking a bit more optimistic. That the RSI was at 25, oversold. It's attempting to recover. This is just for, like, specific to the 1 hour. But I said, however, the volume does need to make progress towards breaking above the 30 volume MA and this descending trend line. On volume, if we want to see potential for a strong bounce and a sustained move towards the upside. So obviously that didn't happen. I gave people some price targets to look out for. I said I'm still of the mind that we should be rather modest with upside price targets until we really start to see more of a sustainable momentum shift. There's no clear evidence of a strong bounce as of yet, so it's better to be safe than sorry. So the modest price targets to the upside I gave, you know, this obviously the 61,350, and a few of these higher ones saying 65K was more ambitious. So what ended up actually happening was more so this scenario, and I didn't flat out say it, but you could kind of tell that I did have a bearish bias. And I said there's no clear evidence that we're breaking this downtrend with any real conviction until we breach and flip that 62,400 area and flip it into support. And also close some 1 hour candle bodies above the 50 simple moving average on the 1 hour chart. If price fails to break past and rejects from 61,350 or below, it will signal that at least some more consolidation will need to take place above 59,000 in order to expect a stronger move up. And we are then likely to retest similar prices to what we saw earlier today at the very least, being that, you know, 59.8 area. I said if the price drops and closes below 59,700 with 1 hour and 4 hour candle body closes, then it significantly increases the chances of the price revisiting the bottom of the range as well as the bottom of the macro descending channel somewhere between 51,000 and 53,000 before hopefully finding support. My current base for worst case scenario will be an all-out fear-based capitulation down to somewhere between 47K and 48K. So, and then I discuss a little bit about what it would take to get back. If we got back above 65, it's more likely to go back to the top side of the range, break out, possibly price discovery. But that's not what happened. What actually did end up happening was the scenario where the price dropped and closed below 59,700 with a 1 hour and 4 hour close, and likely hit the descending channel between 51 and 53K before hopefully finding support. Then said I was going to record a video. Oh yeah, guys, if you have any altcoins that you want me to take a look at, just make sure you comment on the video and throw them in your comments and ask me to take a look at them, and I'll do an analysis on it for you if you like. as long as it's not just like the most garbage altcoin in the world. I'd like to, maintain some sort of credibility here. I would put out a video tonight, so that's what I'm doing. Also, I've got this disclaimer here. I think it's a perfect time to mention it. Guys, I am not a financial advisor, and nothing that I say should be interpreted as financial advice. Be sure to do your own research, practice proper risk management, and understand that you are trading at your own risk. So I'm not a financial advisor, and any losses that you're liable for, any losses that you incur, I'm not responsible for it. I'm just telling you what I think about the charts, and then you make your own judgment and assessment from there. Oh yeah, if you want to recap on my broader thesis, you can check out some of my previous videos. Chibakel said he wanted lower prices because he wants to accumulate. So here's a bit more updated version. I posted this earlier today. I think like probably around like noontime, 10 o'clock or something. And I said, everyone, 2 consecutive 1 hour candle body closes and 1 4 hour candle body close below 59.7. Not a good look for bulls at the moment. 51K area is starting to look more likely at this point, in my opinion. So, I mean, we mentioned I mentioned the targets between 51 and 53K before hopefully finding support. It got there, pretty quick. A lot quicker than I actually expected. Here's some charts from Lennon Gnarly, saying BTC targets if we don't recapture the 200 SMA and retest bottom of the channel that has been respected so far. So these are his targets that he mentioned if we didn't recapture the 200 SMA, which I'm guessing that's... Oh yeah, he's got it labeled there. I'm guessing that's this line here. So he more or less had, some similar targets, 51,800. He also said that the thing I'm seeing is that we failed to retest the 200 SMA last night because the demand was so low. That to me is a sign of weakness, and we could most likely see bottom of the channel and really shake noobs out down to 51K, but that's just what I'm seeing. But a bounce around 57K is likely first, so I don't think we really got the bounce that was expected there, but still, he was saying that he did believe it was likely to hit the bottom of the channel, and he's showing that it's rejecting from the 200 SMA, and this is the 15-minute chart, so that's actually in confluence with the levels that I had. He also said 4-hour bearish divergence played out, the resistance at the top of the channel, let's test the bottom of the channel, and then inflection point out for support, a breakdown out of this channel. Oh boy, that's when shit hits the fan. Real. that's when shit gets real. About 45K. So yeah, he's more or less in agreement with me on that. So I mean, now that we've got that recap, I mean, what did happen? What did actually happen? Once we got those 1 hour candles closing below 59.7 and 4 hour closing below 59.7, which was right here, that's when I made those posts. I mean, you almost within a matter of hours went down 11 or 12%. Where was the bottom of this candle? 52,200. So right between 51 and 53K. So more or less, I mean, my targets have been hit on that, and you're at the bottom of the channel. Like I said, you did get there quicker than I expected, but you're at the bottom of the channel. I mean, here we are. Your daily RSI is at 26. So you're at an oversold level there. If you look at your 4-hour RSI, wow, 4 hours at 18. The 4-hour RSI is at 18. Like, that is incredibly low. Last time you were this low was over here during the Germany sell-off, and that ended up being your local bottom for that point. So let's see, and you did get this excuse me, you got these, where was it? Oh yeah, it was on the daily, where you actually got the bullish divergence coming in right here, where the price made a lower low and the RSI made a higher low. So you had that divergence coming right at that level. Maybe something similar happens here at this level. Maybe you end up forming a bullish divergence on the daily again. You sure did form a bearish divergence on the daily, higher high, lower high, and it resulted in this big, you know, what do we do, 25% down? So 25.5% down. The stochastic is basically bottomed out. Stochastic RSI. You're oversold at 26. The thing that is concerning to me is that your weekly RSI is back below 50 and you're still putting in lower highs on the weekly RSI. And that's not a good sign, because in a bull market, in a normal healthy bull market where you're going into price discovery, generally the price stays the RSI stays above 50. You're above 50 this whole time. Here. You briefly dip below it here, and you ended up putting in this massive bearish divergence on the weekly RSI. And that's what ended up throwing us into the bear market. So after you put in that bearish divergence, like you drop below 50 and you stay below 50, come up and reject from it, you stay below 50 through this entire time that you were in the bear market. You didn't get back above 50 until January of 2023, when the bull market started again. And you've been above 50, like pretty much well above 50 ever since then, for the better part of the last 2 years. So falling below 50, that's, you know, multiple, not just once but multiple times, that's actually fairly concerning in my book. You know, maybe the price just isn't strong enough. This type of thing, I mean, I want to try to stay away from at all costs, you know, predicting that we're going to dive deep into a bear market again, and I'm sure that's the last thing that anybody wants to hear at this point. But I mean, these corrections, like I said, they have a tendency of being really convincing and looking really bad, to the point where everybody gives up, everybody capitulates, and they end up selling the bottom of the move, and they get shaken out of their position, and somebody else buys it. You know, somebody else is probably like a big smart money, whales, whatever. They push the price down and force people to sell so that they can steal their position, because there's nobody to like, let me put it this way. If they can't buy it, and they're trying to be able to buy, if there's a big player out there that's trying to be able to buy a massive position on Bitcoin, and nobody's willing to sell it to them, but there's plenty of people with stop losses below the price where they think the invalidation is, well, those stop losses are essentially sell orders. And if those sell orders are on the book, then a big player is going to say, oh, well, I want to buy Bitcoin at that price, so I'll take that. Bam, they get stopped out. You know, maybe a little bit of selling has to take place, and they pull a little bit of shenanigans to influence the price. But so they sell some of their Bitcoin to in an attempt to drop the price down to that lower spot where there's liquidity for them to steal. And basically, you know, it's uncanny when they sweep these lows. You know, more often than not, you at least get some sort of reaction, and there's a bounce from there. So yeah, in any case, yeah, below 50 on the weekly, that's a bit concerning. But you're oversold on the daily. The 4 hour, you're way oversold at 18, and then the 1 hour, you're at 19. And it looks like the stochastic might be trying to attempt to flip up here. So, look, I don't want to give anyone false hope and say that the price has bottomed out or already, and is going to flip up, and we're reversing and going back to the top of the range going into price discovery. But what I will say is that it's giving all the hallmarks of capitulation, being a really fast, swift move to the downside with these large volume bars and then a long wick on the bottom. I mean, that there's a good chance that could have been a liquidity sweep, but you're seeing a bit of buying stepping in. You're seeing the selling slow down a bit because the sell off was pretty savage this whole time, and just to sort of go back to what I was saying in the analysis that I had wrote, was that if we fail to break back above 61,350 and reject from that level, then there is a much bigger chance, there's a much higher chance that we're going to be seeing the bottom side of this range. It was essential to be able to get back above this level, of back above the 200, back above the 50 SMA. You failed to do all of those things. It was like the price just was like, you know what? No, I'm done. Slumped over. You lost that 60K level, and that was basically the nail in the coffin. So you got this, a lot of this sell pressure coming in. It looks like a lot of people got stopped out and or liquidated, and some buy orders came in at this level. Coincidentally, right where that line is drawn. So it certainly looks like capitulation, given how much volume it has. And I was saying, on the 1 hour, the downtrending or the descending trend in volume I was referring to was, this descending volume right here, and you've broken well past that. And this yellow line here is the 30 volume MA. You broke past that on these. So even though it is sell volume, there could be potential that either a bottom is trying to be formed, or the price doesn't go lower than that, at least not immediately. Who knows? Maybe you need a little bit more consolidation. For all I know, I mean, the price could just consolidate sideways and then drop this support again, and we go down to 46K. But I wouldn't think that that's the most likely scenario. The price already dropped 25%. So, like I said, I don't want to give people false hope, or I don't want to get people too optimistic that the bottom is in and that the price is going to bounce from here. But there is some evidence that would suggest that. We're going to have to wait and see, but so far we have not broken this descending trend line. You've not broken back above the 50 SMA on the 1 hour. So none of these signals have been none of the criteria has been met yet. And now if we zoom in a little bit, I'd like to try to stay away from zooming in too much, but this 55K level, I have this marked out on my chart because this I was mentioning earlier that there was a lot of liquidity between where we were at, which was still well above 60K, I believe, at the time, saying that there was a lot of liquidity between here and 55K. And we swept that liquidity. You can see it got decimated. Like all of the long liquidity. Like, this is the Coinegg liquidation heat map. All of this long liquidity has been taken out. This is a massive deleveraging event. There's longs are getting wrecked. In simplest terms, like to the tune of $718 million over the past 24 hours. So the ratio is, there's only 100 million in shorts that got wrecked. So the ratio is like 7-1 as far as how many longs are getting wrecked versus shorts. A lot of that, even most of that, took place just in the last 4 hours. Just in the last 4 hours, you had $428 million worth of long liquidations. So, it's got signs of capitulation. You got massive deleveraging and long liquidations. Typically, these events, following these things, there is usually a bounce, and it's usually when people least expect it. Oh God! Largest single liquidation happened on Huobi for $27 million. So somebody got liquidated on a $27 million position. Can you imagine? Oh. So yeah, we did end up going and snagging all that liquidity. Long story short. This is the BlackRock Bitcoin ETFs. Part of my theory was that on Sundays, I have a sneaking suspicion that Sunday is when BlackRock and when all the other money, or when all the other money and asset managers try to rebalance the ETF if they need to. If there is a significant amount of extra inflows or a significant amount of extra outflows, they might have to rebalance the ETF. And I've noticed that around 6 p.m. on Sunday, if there is to be a bounce, more often than not, the price does nothing all weekend or goes down all weekend, and then there's a price on Sunday night after the stock market futures opens at 6 p.m. Eastern. And I was like, okay, so why did it not bounce immediately this time? Because usually it's pretty promptly after 6 p.m. And I'm looking at this IBIT BlackRock Bitcoin ETF flows chart, and you've just been trending down when it comes to inflows. I mean, at the beginning of the week there was 205 million, the next day 74 million, the next day 21 million, and 25 million. So there's really hardly any inflows coming in. And I mean, the week before that you were up at 526 million. I mean, look at what the inflows were like here. You were getting higher highs on these inflows. I mean, back here on the 12th, like if this isn't a top signal type thing, I don't know what is. March 12th, 2024. I think was more or less the top, or like marked the top, and it was when there was the most amount of Bitcoin ETF inflows. And this is just for the BlackRock ETF. The most amount of inflows like occurred essentially at the very top. So $849 million worth of inflows. That was the highest high that we've seen. Like from a daily perspective, almost $850 million. $20 million is a far cry from $850 million. So that just kind of shows you where we're at as far as the sentiment of Wall Street and anyone that is speculating on the ETF and trying to find out and get interested in Bitcoin and discovering the ETF and whatever else. Basically, long story short, people aren't buying the ETF. There hasn't been a lot of inflows lately. So BlackRock doesn't really need, they're not forced to buy more Bitcoin. They're only going to be forced to buy more Bitcoin if the inflows demand it. So if there's an insane amount of inflows and they don't have enough Bitcoin to support the amount of inflows that are coming in, to hold it at a 1-to-1 ratio with how much Bitcoin they hold versus the shares of the ETF, they're forced to buy more Bitcoin to rebalance. And what I was suspecting is that when they do rebalance the ETF, I was suspecting that they buy the Bitcoin on Sunday night. If there's enough inflows that call for demand more Bitcoin for the ETF. But there's a low demand for the ETFs. So they're not forced to buy it at any price at this point. In fact, I think what would actually be a smarter move from a smart money perspective it would be to actually sell, whereas you don't have demand from inflows. The smarter move as an asset manager would be to sell and then try to buy back lower. And these guys aren't dumb. I think they have a pretty good idea about when is a lower risk time to buy and when is a higher risk time to buy. And if the ETFs are not demanding it, they're not going to buy more at a higher risk in a higher risk spot, and they're not going to. I mean, if anything, like I said, they could sell at lower risk areas where the price stops trending up. They got the catalyst from the conference. Maybe they've been selling off and hoping to buy lower because they saw this as the true area of value, you know, around 52K area where you already had a bounce. There already it's been shown that there was demand here when it reached 53K before. And that was, I mean, that was about a month ago. It was almost exactly 1 month ago that the price was there. And now it's returned back to a similar price there. So, I mean, there you have it. Could we go lower? I mean, like I mentioned, that 47 to 48K area probably would have been my worst case scenario. But this white line down here I have at 46,200. I mean, is going to be a powerful line if we do see further capitulation from this point, which I'm not even thinking that's very likely anymore. Going to the 12-month chart, just to show you again one more time, the highest monthly candle body closes in history were back in 21 were 46,200. And we're still well above that. I mean, honestly, when you look at it this way, it really doesn't look too bad. The candle body itself is still above it. Granted, it's got a long way to go, but 46,200, I don't see us going down that low. I mean, could we? Sure, but I might be starting to get a little bit more concerned at that point. You know, 47 to 48, I don't think we should really be going too much lower than that. Drawing the fib from the swing low to the swing high here gives you a 618 at 42.9. So basically 43K, which is also a 0.5 fib retracement if you draw a fib from the bear market low all the way up to the all-time high. That would be a 0.5. So, I mean, could this be a price target? I'm not going to go as far as to suggest that until we start to break this 382 fib level and we start to break through this structure. And even then, I mean, that 47, 48K where you have this structure here is still kind of my base case for a worst case scenario. So, and I don't even think that's going to happen. Guys, honestly, the way I feel right now is that this is signaling capitulation. I think it's much more likely and a less risky to try to play a bounce than it would be to try to short this thing. I mean, you are so far rejecting from this 55K area, and you can see that on the smaller time frames. But I think it's not gonna be too long before you crack back above that. You've already see the histogram bar just turned green on the 15-minute, and yeah, you're kind of trying to build a base here. So if you can get back above that 55K, we can start to talk about some of these other levels. But be aware that this 60K area is now going to be significant resistance. So I mean, if we do bounce from here, you know, definitely keep an eye on how the price reacts to 60K. I mean, that's still an 11% move up from here, but definitely keep an eye on how the price reacts there, because if it reacts poorly and we show signs of rejection this soon, or if it's soon after the bounce that it tests it and rejects swiftly, then, you know, we might have some bigger problems. But for me personally, the price did reach I mean, almost exactly the price that it reached the low of this candle, 52,200. That's really more or less in line with the lower price targets that I was looking at. You know, in my previous analysis that I gave, you know, when I said, you know, between 51 and 53K, you know, before hopefully finding support. So that's basically my thesis now. I'm going to be probably looking for long positions with tight stop losses. And I'm going to do my best to play the long side of the market. I had mentioned that, you know, I was buying a few things on spot Um, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, this right here is that this is how I feel about altcoins right now, and I've got the disbelief and depression phases, because I think there's an area of disbelief that comes about where you say to yourself, you think this is a suckers rally. Well, we did end up getting a suckers rally on altcoins because they did come up to lower highs and looked really optimistic before just crashing down. And a lot of them are seeing even their bear market lows, like similar prices to where they were at during the bear market, the lows of the bear market. So I think it's almost like a depression stage, like a second round of depression stage. But you can see here through this is point of maximum financial opportunity. We've already gone through the contraction phase. We haven't gone into expansion. If you ask me, everyone is kind of like, wow, when is the altcoin market going to pump? When is it going to pump? The most likely is that we're in a state of depression, even if it's like a second round of depression. But that point is always a point of maximum financial opportunity. So these are the type of dips that are worth buying, or at least DCAing on, and applying a lot of your capital to the spot market, because the prices, these prices on altcoins on spot, they're gonna go away eventually. These summer lulls, they don't last forever. These prices are not going to be around forever. At least hopefully not. But yeah, I had mentioned that I bought Injective, Fetch, Near, Jupiter, Prime, and Doge, and a few others. I also said don't sleep on DCK, DexCheck. I think DexCheck has a lot of potential. But these are some of my main altcoins, and they're some of the charts that I think look the strongest and have been holding up the strongest. I'll try to do an analysis on those at some point as well. But I definitely think that I should probably wrap the video up there. Just remember, like, don't be scared, don't be shaken out. Volatility creates opportunity, and this is where traders like us can make some of the most rewarding gains. Is going in hard, buying a lot. Like if you're someone who likes to DCA on spot, going in hard on these big capitulation moments, that's where you make the most rewarding gains. Buy when others are fearful, sell when others are greedy, and that's the name of the game, guys. So, in summary, I mean, could we see some more consolidation and then a dip lower? Yes, but I think it's just as likely, if not more likely, that we're just going to see some consolidation and then probably start to make a move up. I mean, by the time I wake up tomorrow, the chart could have already done that, and we could already be pushing for, higher prices. Now, with this evening star pattern that I mentioned at the very beginning of the video, yes, it is scary. Yes, it's typically seen as a reversal pattern. But I have seen them invalidated before. If you take a fib from the top of the high of the candle to the low of the candle, it's perfectly normal to see 618 upwards, so that would be right around 65k, which coincidentally is also the 618 level from this top to this bottom. So it's kind of weird how they coincidentally line up like that right around 65k, which has always been an important level, because back in 2021 you really couldn't get past 65k for the first half of the bull market. So there is a chance that we go up here and we reject. I mean, maybe it takes a long time, and it takes until we're way over here where you reject and then come down, and maybe you don't make a lower low after that. Maybe you make a higher low, and then we can go into price discovery. This kind of thing, it threw me for a loop how fast the drop happened. And yeah, it's not great that we're below this center line on this regression trend either. But I mean, I think on the shorter time frames, if you keep an eye on the shorter time frames and you look for evidence of a bounce, which I mean we did see this wick. You've got your MACD histogram turning white on the 1 hour. You're extremely oversold. I mean, you were down at 17, I think, before on this. Now the RSI is already back at. You're down at 18. Now the RSI is already back at 25. The 4 hour, you were down at 17. The RSI is already back at 21. So you went from an area being extremely oversold. Like there is no doubt about it, guys. Like we are extremely oversold right now in the RSI. So I think that's a big green flag, I guess I would say, as far as if I was looking for a bounce from this area. This also is an area of value. I mean, first things first, you definitely want to flip 55k back into support. You might have some trouble with this 57k area, but if you are to break that, watch how the price reacts to 60k, because there is a lot of potential that 60k can act that's very significant resistance. If we do end up rejecting from that, then we might be in a little bit of trouble. But if you do, break up to it, maybe we break up to it, we consolidate just beneath it, blast through it. If we definitely need to get above this 61,350 area, hold that as support, break through this, and then we can talk about 65k and then maybe higher. But I mean, the first thing that you would want to see, first signal that you would want to see, is a flip of 55k in the short term. You might meet some resistance at 60k, but if you consolidate and put in higher lows and then break through 60k and above 61.3, you would want to flip that and hold that as support before we then start talking about higher numbers. So that's what I'll be looking for. I mean, I have been buying stuff on spot. I think the altcoins are at bargain prices, and I did want to look at the others market cap, which I had a lot to say about this chart, but I'll just keep it short and sweet. You did lose this trend line, but you also have this descending trend line, and this right here, this whole structure right here, is a falling wedge. It's called the falling wedge, which is an extremely bullish pattern. So when this chart does break out, it's going to be epic. And this basically represents the altcoin market. It's the others, which is total market cap excluding the top 10. So it's basically like the altcoin market. And I think that it might just end up taking a little bit longer. I mean, this is kind of what I thought the price was going to do, was bounce here, or maybe even bounce lower down here. But these scenarios, they don't always play out exactly like you think they're going to do. But yeah, still holding this trend line. You're in a falling wedge, which is a bullish pattern. It's an incredibly bullish pattern. I think anything within this green box should be bought. Any dips within this green box should be bought, which is roughly between 150 and 175 billion on others market cap. You should be buying altcoins. So this is an area of value. You really don't want to see it drop below 130 billion, because then you're in trouble. But really, anything in this box, as long as you're above 130 billion, anything in this box, any dips down here, should definitely be bought. And there's actually a good chance that this could be the last time that the altcoins get this low. So take advantage of it while it's there. DCA. Try to look for some long positions. That would be, that's what I'm gonna do anyway. You can do whatever you want, but that's what I'm gonna be trying to do, is taking some long positions. Hopefully not getting stopped out, and hopefully the positions that I added to spot are going to do pretty well. So keep an eye on those stronger altcoins, like I mentioned, Fetch and Injective and Near, and stuff like Solana. Like Solana is doing really well. Other things. Render is still I think in the process of swapping to the Solana network from the ETH network. But if you have anywhere that you can buy render, I mean render is has been really strong this cycle. So those injective render near, those type of coins that are showing a lot of strength. I'd recommend taking a look at those and Pendle. And like I said, I can go through the charts and try to do a quick analysis on all of these altcoins at some point pretty soon. Maybe tomorrow or within the next couple days. But one last thing that I wanted to mention is you did end up dropping below the 20-week SMA on US 500, which really isn't a great sign. I would hope that the weekly does not close below it, but like I had mentioned, if you lose that 5300 area, then you're probably likely to see 52. But I'm not convinced that we're gonna lose 5200 here. If we do lose 5200 on the S&P, we might have a bit more trouble on the horizon and be seeing lower numbers. If the S&P was to drop this much, then Bitcoin's definitely in trouble at that point. Forget your altcoins. But anyway, guys, long story short, I'm flipping to a long bias at this point. I will be flipping to a long bias. I'm going to be looking for continued evidence of a bounce and hopefully try to play moves towards the top side of this range here. And if I draw a fib from the local top down to the bottom there, you can also see that this 618 fib is at 63,250. So I mean, I'll probably be, like I mentioned, the resistance at 61,350. I'll probably be keeping an eye on these areas, taking some risk off the table when Bitcoin reaches this point. But if you do break above and stay above these levels, you can go towards the top of the range. You decide to take some profit there to be safe. That's also not a bad idea, but you might want to leave a runner because there is a chance that we could break out at that point. So I'm switching to a long bias at this point. Could we go lower? Yeah, maybe. And I'll continue to keep up to date with the price action. I have some other friends that believe that we could actually go lower, but I'm not really too convinced. I think we've seen a lot of blood recently, especially over the last couple days, and that might have been what we needed as far as a good reset in order to try to pick a good spot for a reversal. So stay optimistic, buy the blood, and even if it's just a DCA buy, at least it's much better to be buying down here than it is to be buying up here. I'm not a breakout trader. I like to buy the dips. I like the DCA. So I'm just telling you what I see in the charts here, and what I see is that we're at the bottom of a descending channel that we've been adhering to very well. And this channel has been very uniform. So I'm going to continue to trust it until it stops working. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope you liked the content. I hope you got some value out of it. I hope it wasn't too long. I know it's pretty long again. So it looks like I'm going to have another exceptionally long video. But anyway, if you made it this long and you were able to stick with me this long, congratulations, and I commend you. And yeah, I hope you found it helpful. If you liked the content, I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a like and give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and also comment in the video what altcoins you would like me to take a look at, and I will do my best to be able to do some quick analysis on it, but I'll try to make it thorough as well. So make sure you comment the altcoins that you want me to take a look at. Yeah, and until the next video, take care and trade safe.